Welcome again to From Dungeons to Starships, and this video is brought to you on the 25th anniversary of the production and issue of a game that has stood the test of time for the last 25 years. And that game is Mordheim. Now, many games that when they are passed up for direct support from Games Workshop often are defined by many people in the community as that game being a dead game and it's not going to be carrying on. But there are instances of games that are so beloved by the community that plays them that sometimes they go from strength to strength even after Games Workshop to step away from them. Mordheim is one of these games, alongside games like Blood Bowl, that was kept alive for many years, even though GW decided never to back it, and have come back into the throes of things in later years. But the game itself was expanded on, was built on, had rules that were tweaked and reissued with living rule books, to a game now that is enjoyed and is very, very popular the world over. Now, as such, with this 25th anniversary, the designer of the game, Thomas Pirinen, who we had on a few episodes ago, not only talking about Mordheim, but also about Trench Crusades. And can I just take this little snippet just to offer my heartfelt congratulations to a successful Kickstarter of touching £3 million for an independent game. That seems that there's not a massive amount of people behind it, but it just goes to show that when you have someone with a name who's trusted by the community as well, that games can soar even without massive marketing budgets. So as such, he wants to celebrate this 25th anniversary. One thing that's going to happen is, I believe in Italy next year, there's going to be a massive Mordheim competition where he's going to be crowned the world champion of Mordheim. Again, Italy is one of the main culprits for Mordheim, and the number of people who are already earmarked to be going into that competition blows your mind about. So, that it's can be masses compared to anything you see from even GW supported games at their big shows. But one of the other things he wants to do was a miniature competition. Now, he's aware, or the people behind the competition are aware, that not only is painting one of these aspects that people enjoy for Mordheim, but also kit bashing and conversion, telling stories, embracing the grim, dark nature of the game, and being able to bring that to life in miniature form. So as such, for November, he set up a competition. So by the end of November, there will be a number of people who are, if they haven't already, entering miniatures into a number of different areas of the competition. There's things like best single model, best warband. There's one which is titled Grimdark, and then there's kit bash and conversion. Now, already I've finished a miniature that I'm going to be putting into the kit bash and conversion aspect of the competition, and I've been floating that around on various social medias, and hopefully you've seen it. But with that one, unfortunately, the model was created and built pretty much as soon as the competition was announced, and unfortunately I didn't get to put down the process on camera to put together as a episode or two that I could share with you. So therefore then I thought I'd do a second entry into another one of the categories. Now, painting wise, I'm not going to go up against the guys who are the pinnacle painters in the competition. Warbanding, I didn't really want to put myself down to something that was going to be massively over the top in terms of timescale. And because I've already got an entry into the kit bash and conversion, the one area that I could do is the grimdark category. Now, in the grimdark category, he's talked about that this could be anything that really grabs hold of that grimdark aesthetic that Mordheim has. It could be a single model, a warband, basically anything that can be involved in any of the categories of the competition, but something that really emphasizes that feeling that Mordheim gave in terms of its aesthetic background, and also sometimes its quite whimsical nature in terms of what's involved in things like artwork that we see. So as such, I want to tell a little story. I want to do a little small diorama of only a few figures, one key principal figure and a couple of bits surrounding it. And I want to tell a little bit of story about something that you might find happening in Mordheim on a daily basis, even though the place is in ruins. Now, before, I've tried this idea before when, and if you go back to one of the initial videos on this channel, you would see the entry into Golden Demon's diorama competition that we did. The things that we called Once Upon a Time in Mordheim, which was telling a story about something that might happen in Mordheim before the crash of the twin-tailed comet. So as such, then I want to take that idea and move forward with it. And because I'm sort of like basing it on titles of films, I had a look at, there was a couple that I want to look at as being the background. One of the ones is The Million Ways to Die in the West, and the other one is Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Two of my absolute favourite films. So I thought to myself, well, let's have a look at things that you could do in Mordheim. Now, as such, I want to take the ruinous nature of the aesthetic in the background and again add that little whimsical nature to it. So one of the things that we see in a lot of the board builds, etc., is we see a lot of canals, a lot of river structures with broken down and battered bridges. So this is where my first aspect is going to be going. I'm going to have a look at something to do with a battered and derelict and ruined bridge. And I thought to myself, well, what would be happening off that bridge? And of course, it's someone going fishing. But what would they be fishing for in Mordheim? Now, in first principles, I had looked at, if you have a look at a lot of the artwork and a lot of the intricate little items that are on the pages, you often see images of fish in the Mordheim book, and it's one of the tokens that's taken away through a lot of the different artwork that was produced for the pages of that book. So my initial thought was to do something aligned with that. But then I thought to myself, well, what would be happening at the bridge? What would it be used for before the ruin of the city? And I thought to myself that a lot of the times you see things like gibbets that are hung from bridges with traitors, people, thieves, and various criminals that are then put in these gibbets and left to rot in there. And a lot of the times then, to just replace them, the bottom is open, the body will fall out, and it'll be replaced by another one, another ne'er-do-well or another criminal. So as such, I thought to myself, well, could it be that the character that I've got is going fishing and trying to catch zombies, skeletons, to put together another warband? So he's going fishing for counterparts and members of a warband. So where do we start with this diorama? Well, in this episode, we're going to look at setting the scene. We're going to look at the background or the building of the terrain that I'm going to be using for this diorama. Now, although this channel is more veering again towards kit bashing conversion, I'm a strong component to say that things like terrain building is a form of kit bashing itself, where you're taking lots of different aesthetic parts, putting them together and try and create something that gives the illusion or atmosphere of rocks, muds, plant life, etc., etc. And there's nothing to stop you from intermingling any number of items if it then gives the aesthetic that you want. Now for this, I'm going to use something that I've never used before. Now, when I've been creating buildings and stuff like that, I've always used foam board. So the small little couple of mil thick foam board that we can cut into shapes, glue together to get the structure of the building, and then cover that with whatever. I've never built a big table, so I've never had to use the large sheets of XPS foam that we see from those builds. But it's that blue foam that I want to use going forwards for this build. Now, as such, lucky enough that companies like Green Stuff World are able to supply that foam board in small little packages, small little sizes that we can get hold of, so we're not buying a massive sheet for just doing something that's like 20 or 30 mil high and 10 to 15 mil wide. With my Hobby the Blade 8, I was able to cut off a section of that blue foam, carve out the rough structure of the archway in it, and then that would act as the basis going forwards for all the rest of the terrain that's going to appear around it. Now, one of the benefit things about using that blue foam is the availability for you to introduce texture directly to the foam itself. Now, again, using Green Stuff World, they do a number of what they call their texture rollers. And one of them I bought before is one that gives a cobblestone type effect that normally you use when you put some green stuff down on the base. You roll the roller over the top of it and it leaves the indentation of these cobbled stones. But what you can do with this roller is, given enough force, you roll it over the surface of that foam, and it again leaves the indentation from the roller in the foam itself. So it's going to aid us with a lot of the background work in terms of the textures that's going to appear on that bridge section. From that, we have to add a little bit of detail to the bridge itself. So there's two other aspects I'm going to use. First of all, the cutout pieces of foam that I've used for cutting out the arch, I'm going to split them apart. I'm going to split them apart quite roughly, and then using some hot glue, going to stick them down on the base around the base of the archway to act as broken rubble and rocks that could be used as the initial foundation for the bridge when it was first built. Alongside with that, I want to give the bridge itself a little bit more detail. So again, from previous projects, I've had available to me these little foam cutout bricks that I've used again for building walls, etc., etc. And it's the ones that I used on the project for Golden Demon. All I've done is I've cut them in half, both lengthways and widthways, to just give me a little bit of a less sticky out block, and available then to maneuver them onto the archway and then across the top of the bridge to build up walls to make sure that we've got some kind of extra little bit of detailing that's going to help to enhance to the model itself. Now, once I've got all the foam down, it's going to take now, the next stage is going to be looking at painting. Now, with this, because it's foam, we can't really use spray or rattle can because of the nature of the paint. It's only going to cause the foam to melt. Now, there are companies that say that their product doesn't affect foam, and I've never used any of those, so I couldn't argue which way, or couldn't tell you which way they're going. But one of the ones I do, or one of the ways I approach this, is that I'm going to initially seal all that foam with some Mod Podge. So Mod Podge mixed with a little bit of acrylic paint to just darken it down, and I just cover the entire surface of the foam with it. Once it's dried, it gives me a good base background to then go in with these cheap acrylic paints that I've got from a local hobby store. Now, these are only, a couple of pence each. And what's really good about them, if you look at other terrain videos as well, you can see that a lot of the time they don't use one solid colour for block work. Like, it's not just grey. It's grey tones, it's going up towards black tones and then into browns and all the rest of it. And it is just literally a haphazard coating of those different colours, trying to blend them together a little bit, which at first looks doesn't look too appealing to the eye. But once it's dry, and then you give it a coat of something like Agrax Earthshade over the top to really go and seep into those details, and then you break your makeup brushes out or your Artist Opus Series D brushes and give it then a light brushing over in some kind of light grey, it really pulls it all together and really gives it that overall look of something that is stone, and not just grey stone, but all those different colours and textures that you get that happen in natural environment for the difference within the actual stonework itself. So once we've got now we've got the basis of the stone, it's time to work at the rest of the basing. Now, what I want to do is I want to have like half the base at the bottom, some kind of really muddy, dirty water, some viscous stagnated pool that you look like you could actually walk across it, and let alone actually sink into it. And within that stagnant pool is going to be all these remnants of these skeletons that are going to try and kind of burst to the surface when our main character is fishing for these different models. Start off with a basic texture paint. So I've chose this one, Muddy Earth. Again, Muddy Earth, it's where I'm going. So hopefully this will give me a good basis from which to move on from. From then, I then have the availability then of going back to Green Stuff World's catalogue, and I bought some little terrain accent pieces, I think you would call them. One of the ones they do is this pack of skeletons that look like they're crawling out the ground. So you've got heads that are coming out the ground, arms that are coming out the ground, half torsos that are out. So if you ever wanted to like build something, so like with a necromancer that's raising these skeletons from the dead, it's going to be really, really good to have some aspects of this. And I can see it being working really well for games as well, like Kings of War, when you can base models on a larger base and tell a story. So you could represent one of your skeletons that's in that unit with just an arm coming out the ground. And it would make sure that, so like, going down the line, you have the availability to, the amount of skeletons you'd have to produce, paint and put into it, and especially it limits that factor altogether. So once the models have been chosen for what I'm going to do, I'll cut them down so that we're at least sinking down into the waters, the muddy waters themselves. Now, with this one, I also took the opportunity to use a gibbet that came along with one of the Gargant sprues from Age of Sigmar, because I wanted it to be that, so like eventually, with the ruin of that bridge, the gibbet had actually fallen and sunk into the water itself. So you've got then the body of another skeleton who's actually trapped in the cage, that's trapped in the water. So a double level of punishment for this, whatever he did in his proper life, to now still be suffering in this undying form that he's got. So once I've got the models all in place, I then have to add some kind of material to it to give it that sheen of being water. Now, I was going to go down a longer route of trying to use some more standard water effects and try and build up quite a deep section of water. But I had available to me the UV water effects material that, again, and it's going to sound stupid, but this game is not sponsored by Green Stuff World, but it seems everything I'm using in is. But something that I could put just over the texture of that muddy ground, use the UV torch, and basically just give it that overall sheen of being a liquid. Not over the top that it's going to be, you're not going to be able to see down through it, because I want it to act like mud, like a really stagnant pool where you can't see for any of it, but just give it that overall sheen over the top, and then to be looking at these skeletons writhing to get out of the material itself. One of the other things, though, I did and found that when I was looking for those skeletons is another accent piece. They did a small little, I think it's 3D printed from what it is, a little resin bed of little 28 mil scale rats. So I thought it'd be nice to just have a little aspect of looking out over this scene. There's a little group of rats that are to one side of the bridge. So we've got a little gnaw hole in the side of the bridge where we've got one of the rats went in, couple of them actually looking out over the scene, taking to interest, and one running backwards and forwards. And it's just that little greebly that's added in, just to add that extra little bit of definition to the story itself. Now, once I'd finished on the base, it's just to have a look now at putting it on some kind of plinth that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to be using one of those domed plinths eventually, just to give it a bit of protection once I've finished it, but also so I can put it on a little bit more of a display. But for the time being, it's just there to hopefully keep the majority of the dust that could be generated within my hobby space away from it while I work then on the main character model. Eventually I came up with this. So this is going to be now the main background to the diorama that I've built. So this is my bridge section with the skeletons, with the rats, with the various bits of foliage and tufts that have been added in, little bits of leaves, just to give the whole thing a really sort of like dank and run down vibe that we're going to be getting, or you should be getting, in terms of aspects for Mordheim itself. So next we're going to have a look, and in next video we're going to have a look at our main character model. So the fisherman that's going to be as part of the scene. So what I'd like to do in this is to see what type of stuff that you've been coming up in terms of your building. Little dioramas, little aspects from, even if it's just a case of from the basing of a model, to giving something else that you can add in the background of when you're taking photos, just to give a background and an aesthetic to the model that just takes it away from just being a miniature to telling a story within this miniature universe that we all love and enjoy. Thanks for watching. I hope that if you are part of this competition, that all your builds are going well. And I can't wait to see what a lot of people come up with, because, again, every time I'm in one of these competitions, the level of creativity that I see coming from people is absolutely outstanding. So thanks, guys. Again, make sure you check all the links below. Check the link to our Patreon to go and jump on to the Discord channel and to be starting to get involved with the creation of our community. So you can share your own builds on there with other people who are into the same thing that you are. Again, if you don't want to join in the Patreon, no harm, no foul. Just please like, subscribe to the video. And if you think that it is something else that someone else enjoy, please just give us a share going forwards. So hopefully, by the end of November, there will be another video coming out, the second one in this series, where we'll have a look at the completion of our character model and then the completion of the diorama in full. So again, just click on those notifications just in case you don't want to miss out having watched this video with us. Thanks, guys. Take care.